All right, so we're jumping straight into Advanced Path Bodyguard. The future of the world may be held in the hands of politicians, but their own future is likely held in the hands of a bodyguard. A bodyguard must be able to gain trust either by charisma or reputation if he should remain employed. The protection of others is paramount. It is only in the intent that individualizes a bodyguard. Do you seek to defend those who you hold most dear, or are your services, or perhaps lapse thereof, for sale to the highest bidder? Bodyguards. So they're like they do what they sound like. They're really good body at protecting other people with their rogue skills. So where a lot of people spend their rogue skill to dodge or auto deflect for themselves, the point of bodyguard is that you use the ability so you can deflect and use your defensive skills, a lot of them actually, for other people, both in weapon mastery and in knavery, if they're within valid range of your weapon. You can deflect or parry for other people. And so this uh, pathway specifies that like that's what you're trying to do. And I gotta be honest, it's one of the best feelings ever. Like helping other people and saving like this last event, I played my first event for 4 years and I can only master deflect 3 times. Like I have only enough pool to do a master deflect 3 times in a given event. And there was a relatively newer guy, and he got hit with a sleigh in the back, like right beside me. And he like his face was like lit up with this like, oh no, I don't have a defense for that, type of look, like deer in a headlight look. And I gotta be like, and I had used 2 of my master deflects already, so like I could have saved my master deflect for myself, but I was like, master deflect, and I master deflected for him. And honestly, the feeling that I got from that was like crazy fun. Like that was crazy cool. Um, so like this whole bodyguard, I imagine playing a bodyguard is super rewarding, honestly. Like it has to be one of the most fun things to do in this game, in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, like that's the point of bodyguard is like you're spending your skills to purposely defend other people. And that fits into a bunch of different archetypes. That fits into like I'm trying to be a knight, like a knight in shining armor type of archetype, or I'm literally trying to be a bodyguard for hire, and so my job is to protect like the VIP, etc. Right? Like so this again, this just like how bard fit a ton of archetypes, bodyguard fits like more than one, right? Uh, but yeah, so with that out of the way, we're gonna jump right into the skills. Deflect Mastery. So Bodyguard gains a reduction to auto or magic deflect when deflecting for others only. It is reduced by 1. Which is sweet. So magic deflect and auto deflect both cost 5, and with this skill they'll cost 4. And then we can't really talk about this without talking about concentration defense rogue. So just like how in Blackguard they had concentration offensive rogue, this is the same skill but kind of flipped on the different side of the coin here, where it reduced the cost of all defensive knavery skill rogues by 1. Again, mistype. Rogue skills can't be reduced to by more than half. But the knavery stuff can be reduced to 1. And then this specifically includes redirect, which is kind of hard to put deliberately into either offensive or defensive. But this includes redirect, and it's a rogue skill. In contrast, all offensive knavery and rogue skills are increased by 1. And in this case, offensive weapon mastery and adept skills are also increased by 1. So you're really doubling down uh, on the rogue costs. Like you're not assassinating somebody in the back with this type of pathway, essentially. And you're not snakes revenging either, because now snake revenge costs 1 more, right? Uh, so with that understanding, so your defensive stuff for yourself costs -1, right? So your auto deflect automatically already costs like 4. And then when you're doing it for other people, it's reduced to 3. And if you were following along, you can't reduce a cost to more than half of its skill rounded up for rogue. So a 5 cost skill halfway would be 2.5 rounded up as 3. So when you're magic deflecting and auto deflecting for other people specifically, you are doing magic deflect and auto deflect for the lowest cost possible in the game. Period. Like you're doing it for the least amount of possible rogue that you can spend on it, which is really good. With just those two skills, and it's 3 build and 5 build respectively. That's pretty hot for 8 build, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, for 8 build, you're doing the best costed auto deflects and magic deflects in the game. Pretty cool. And just having reduced by 1 for yourself personally is pretty cool. And then if you're carrying an item that reduces rogue, you're also still doing it for 3 for yourself. So you can't reduce it more than 3, but you can that would allow you to reduce it for yourself as well to 3. And then a flat out immunity to fear effects regardless of source, so even unnatural fears. It's just an flat immunity to fear for 10 build. Really solid. I could, as a Nullifidian player, I cannot help myself but to say that this is a really good pathway for a Nullifidian, honestly. There's not a whole ways to get rid of fear for Nullifidians, so being just flat out immune to it would be sweet. And having your rogue skills reduced to the bare minimum for auto deflects and magic parry. Well, you don't care about magic parry because you're an Ophidian at that point. But having your auto deflect reduced to the lowest it can possibly be is pretty sweet for yourself and for other people. Bodyguard redirect mastery. So this is similar to the thing that reduced Snake's Revenge by 5, but Snake's Revenge was 15 and redirect is only 10. Okay, so you're following with me here? You can't reduce it by more than half. This literally just sets it straight to the half cost. Okay. Redirect is, again, another rogue skill like Cornered Rat that I didn't cover in the rogue section. I said go read rogue. We're going to cover it now really quick. Redirect amounts to if somebody hits me for 200 damage, I can spend 5 rogue and say redirect, and they now take that same 200 damage swing that they hit me for. And this applies to like almost anything that has a number with it. It's specifically anything that's a weapon strike. So a slay or a Vorpal slay, etc., would be equivalent here. Anything that's not a spell strike kind of thing is uh is applicable here. Okay, so if somebody goes like slay slay slay, and or Vorpal slay Vorpal slay Vorpal slay, and they do that for like 30 adept, not assuming that they have reductions, and you go like okay, redirect redirect redirect, and you just did that for 15 rogue, and they spent 30 adepts. Okay, so you're winning the pool battle there. Okay, which is really efficient. And then also they're taking 3 Vorpal slays right back at them, and you're not. Those are valid defenses for you. A thing to understand, you cannot redirect a redirect, which means the first person to say redirect wins that. Okay? Really cool. Really good skill. And you also cannot use lower pools to defend against a redirect, even if the thing that's being redirected was a lower pool. So if somebody does a regular weapon mastery slay against you, and you say redirect, it does not it cannot be master deflected even though it's a slay. It has to be stopped with an auto deflector better, right? And there's a discussion to be had upon whether or not auto parry works on that. I'd have to actually go specifically look at redirect, and I'm not gonna. You know what? I'll take the time to do that. Rogue. This is the knavery. This is rogue. Where is it? Redirect. Nope. It is literally, yeah, it literally says weapon mastery. So this is just like how rogues stuff has to only be, you have to defend from behind with most of your rogues attacks. Specifically, only rogue defends against redirects. So redirecting is actually way better than I thought it was. Holy crap, that's really solid. I'm gonna have to look into that for a second character or something, because that's actually kind of nuts. I would love to play a bodyguard, honestly. That's super cool. And Rogue is just such a good pool anyway. Like, regardless of the pathway, Rogue is just super good. And, like, having all... It's freaking nuts. Sweet. Alright. But yeah, so you're doing this, again, you're getting redirect for the lowest possible cost that you can do it for, which is sick. So now we move on to Sacrifice. Bodyguard may take damage for another character. When Bodyguard is within weapons reach of another character, and bodyguards are cool because what you use typically is not a sword. You will use a spear, which is like the longest single-handed weapon you can carry. You get a single-handed spear, which increases your weapons range, which allows you to deflect for people within weapons range, right? So most bodyguards are carrying like a spear with them, which is super neat. But if they're within weapons reach of another character, they may call sacrifice to take the hit for that character. Afterwards, the bodyguard must attempt to get between the attacker and his sacrifice target to the best of his ability. May not use the skill, activate magic items, or use smart defenses to defend against the attack that is now targeting. Sacrifice may not be used for any touch effects. So, if you had a repel weapon and you called sacrifice, the repel weapon would go off because it is dumb. It is a dumb defense. You don't have a choice whether or not you use it. But you cannot use a skill, so you can't be like sacrifice and then master deflect your slay. You say sacrifice and then you eat a slay. Okay? So this is very enigmatic of Bodyguard, and you typically probably only want to do this for. It's hard to justify this because this isn't Knavery. If this was like Knavery, I'd be like, do this all the time. But because this is 5 rogue, and I much rather spend 5 rogue redirecting than sacrificing, it's a lot harder for me to justify using this skill. But if you have a repel weapon on you, it's the shit. Like, it's awesome. So if you have a repel weapon on you, sacrifice all you want. Pretty hot. But for 5 rogue, it's hard to do this even if it was like a 200 damage swing. Like if they were like 200 damage, and you went like it's hard to justify saying sacrifice instead of just being like master deflect for 200 for like 5 knavery. You know, like it's hard to justify that. This is definitely a oh my gosh, that new guy is getting hit with a freaking ritual strike. I better sacrifice for the. It's not a ritual strike. Within weapons region. Oh no, yeah, it could just kind of be anything, anything but a touch attack. So yeah, so if they did like ritual strike somebody, you could be like, sacrifice. Which, wow, again, I can't help but think of Nullifidian here. If you sacrificing yourself for specifically to take the hit for that character. This doesn't specify. I need to look into. I literally need. I'll copy this right now. I need to look into. Wow, I should play a bodyguard. What the hell am I doing? This is so good. Yeah, so if you're like a Nullifidian bodyguard and like somebody throws a ritual at your buddy, you go sacrifice 5 rogue, that ritual actually hit me, and I just no affect the ritual. Or a spell, a magic spell attack, because this is only specifying that sacrifice may not be used for any touch attacks. Like, that's freaking hot. And your immunities, your immunity to magic spell and your immunity to rituals is specifically just for is a dumb defense. It's an immunity. It's not a smart defense. So it does apply when you use sacrifice. That's actually nuts. So there's a case to be made for sacrifice, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Bodyguard cover. Bodyguard can negate one attack made within their reach. To use this ability, character must call out cover, and both he and his target are forced to the ground. This is not considered a trip effect. Cover may not be used against radius or touch attacks. So it has to be within your weapon's reach, which means that I assume that the attacker and the person getting hit has to be within weapon's reach. I assume, because this would be well, no, because that it would make sense to duck if you're like getting attacked by like an arrow or a spell from distance. But yeah. So essentially, you take a trip effect, they're forced to the ground, and so they don't actually make you like hit the deck instantly. Like that wouldn't really be fair. And this is a LARP, so some people can't just like instantly drop their like safely drop themselves on their stomach like instantly. That's not particularly safe. But typically, when you take a trip effect, what you will do is you will put your knee on the ground, like you will with your own time, I guess. You will slowly lower yourself to the ground on your knee and then back up as if you took a trip effect. And in that period of time, you're vulnerable. So this isn't specifically a trip effect. So if there's ways to get immune to trip, and this is not a trip effect, so you can't be immune to your own skill. But yeah, this is a cool skill, and it's 10 rogue to negate one attack made on a willing creature with an arm's reach. I have to assume, man, that this means like a weapon strike, because this is way too good if this is a ritual or a spell. Honestly, like I'm going to have to like go ask them about Bodyguard and be like, hey, is this how this works? Because if it does, Bodyguard is nuts, and I should be playing a Bodyguard instead of whatever I'm doing with Zen. Oh, this is so good. Yeah, Bodyguard cover, 10 rogue. So like you get to negate an attack, and like if you were dodging, because like it's ten rogue to dodge. So if you negate an attack made on 1 million creature within arm's reach, like you just get to dodge for somebody else essentially, which is neat. Mechanically, in terms of cost, it's the equivalent of dodging for somebody else. But and like this pair, like you kind of ignore this, but I mean you do have to go to your D when you do it. But theoretically, this is good. Theoretically, this is really good. Because if this is not just a weapon blow type of attack, if this is like literally negate and attack, so it could be anything at that point, which I assume there's got to be like an understanding that it's just a weapon strike. Because if you could do this for parries, like if this is a ritual defense, because a thrown ritual, like a ritual wrath, that's an attack, and if it's within your arm reach, then like you could pay 10 rogue to stop a ritual wrath from hitting somebody else. Like that would make, I don't know, like it's gotta be that'd be nuts if it is. If it works that way, this is an amazing skill. If it doesn't work that way, this is an okay skill. All right, and the cookie. Bodyguard, I will always love you. All of the cookies are named pretty uniquely because they weren't in the regular rulebook, so the plot marshals kind of got like a little haha funny with some of the names. I will always love you. Sacrifice ability increases range. You may now use sacrifice against a 10-foot radius or smaller attacks, which is hot. This is super sweet. So you can take damage in a radius attack. So if somebody does a radius slay, you can sacrifice for it, which is awesome. Uh, yeah, that's really cool. So I have met a couple of bodyguards in game, and the one that comes to mind the most is a character named Tortuga. And Tortuga was a really good, like I didn't know him outside of his character, but when I talked and I was around Tortuga, I really enjoyed my time, and he was a really thoughtful and helpful and kind person, honestly. And he was a turtle beast man named Tortuga, and he played bodyguard. And I imagine that the turtle beastman skill allowed him to like deflect for cheaper for other people. You know, it makes sense because he's a shell and he's defensive. And I kind of hinted at this person uh, when I was talking about Beastman originally, because like this is the turtle guy that I remember, like this guy named Tortuga. Sadly, he passed away like a year or two into me playing Shiftedlands, so he is very fondly remembered. And he was a really cool guy. And I cannot think of Bodyguard and not think of Tortuga, because to me the idea of the turtle shell and defending other people goes like hand in hand. Like it's unseparable for me. Um, so when I really think of Bodyguard, I think of Tortuga, and I think of the time I got to spend with that guy and how cool he was. So yeah, bodyguards are sweet. I totally should go play a bodyguard. They're super cool, man. Yeah. So that was Bodyguard. Thanks for watching. We gotta jump over to Chronomancer next, which is very unique. Thank you for your time.